Right now on Matter of Fact, meet the Republican ready to take on his own party over immigration.
It's time for us to actually do our job.
But will his political gamble help more than 1 million undocumented immigrants or split the Republican Party?
I don't know of a more divisive issue than this.
And is the cost of college killing the American dream?
It is the delay of entering the economy, starting the family, buying a house, a car. You got to pay off the student bill.
But is free college really the answer? Plus, how can old tires, bottles, and cans help rebuild Puerto Rico?
I'm Soledad O'Brien. Welcome to Matter of Fact. A war over DACA is being waged in the U.S. House of Representatives, and it's pitting Republicans against each other. A group of renegade Republican Congress members are trying to force a vote on a series of immigration bills that would protect so-called dreamers, those undocumented immigrants brought to the United States as children. They're using what's called a discharge petition to bypass Republican leadership and move directly to a vote on 4 different proposals. Whichever bill gets the most votes would be sent on to the Senate. It's known as a Queen of the Hill vote. A discharge petition requires the approval of the majority of members to pass, and assuming all the Democrats sign on, the Republicans would need 25 members to agree. House Speaker Paul Ryan and the Majority Leader, Kevin McCarthy, are urging Republicans to not support the move. Ryan says the discharge petition is a big mistake, causes disunity in the party, and that none of the bills have a chance of becoming law. But the Republicans who have signed the petition say they're frustrated that Ryan hasn't taken any action on immigration. Congressman Will Hurd represents the 23rd District of Texas. He was one of the very first Republicans to sign the petition. His immigration proposal, which is called the USA Act, is one of the bills set to be voted on if the petition passes. Congressman, it's so nice to have you with us.
Thanks for having me on.
So let's step back for a second and just talk about the big picture of immigration as we look toward the midterm elections. On one hand, you have Republicans like yourself for whom your reelection could well rely on Latinos going to the polls. On the other hand, there is a very strong anti-immigrant sentiment that's been whipped up as well. What's your biggest concern as these two forces sort of collide for the outcome of the midterm elections?
Well, I actually believe that there's not one issue that makes or breaks an election. My election in November is based on my last 13 months of providing leadership to the district, helping out constituents, and solving problems. And one of those problems that needs to be solved is actually immigration. Also, when you look at the macroeconomic issues going on in our country, we're at 3.9% unemployment. What does that mean? That means that it's really hard to find good employees. And when it comes to these DACA kids, over 1 million of them, that 97% of them are in school or are working. 5% of them are entrepreneurs, which is more than twice the national average. These are young men and women that are already contributing to our culture, our history, our economy. And these are folks that we need. And so we should be making sure that they have a permanent legislative fix for their situation.
The president said recently, we have people coming into the country or trying to come in. We're stopping a lot of them. Mm-hmm. You wouldn't believe how bad these people are. These aren't people, they are animals. He's talking about undocumented people flowing into the country. How problematic is calling undocumented people not humans, but animals?
I don't talk about them that way. And also, that is not a perspective that all Republicans share. And that's why we're working to try to solve this problem.
I mentioned the Queen of the Hill rule, and one of the bills that, if in fact that passed, would be yours. Give me the short version of what your bill has in it.
It's called the USA Act. Simple. Smart wall. Look at all 2,000 miles of the border at the same time. Let's be deploying technology. Technology exists that we can tell the difference between a bunny rabbit and a person. So let's actually secure our border. And it's a fraction of the cost of building a concrete structure along the entire mile of the border. Then you have a DACA fix for over 1 million young men and women. It's a permanent legislative fix, and it gives a pathway to legal status. Third piece is additional immigration judges. one of the problems that you have with the number of folks that have been apprehended, you can't get them through the legal system fast enough. And then a fourth piece, which is let's work on rule of law and economic development opportunities in the places that people are having to leave. Those are the four elements.
Why does Paul Ryan not bring any of these bills to the floor?
I don't understand why. I think he has said that he believes that the president wouldn't sign some of these bills, that it wouldn't become law. Well, our job in Congress is to negotiate pieces of legislation. And guess what? It's the president's, it's his right to veto a bill or to sign a bill. And so let's have that process work. I actually believe that if we get a bipartisan solution to the president's desk, he will sign it.
Congressman Will Hurd, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Next on Matter of Fact, Education Secretary Betsy DeVos sparks controversy by gutting investigations into for-profit colleges.
It's scandalous. If you're not investigating scandals, thousands of young men and women are going to get ripped off.
And could taxpayers get stuck holding the bill for billions in student debt? Plus, meet the two women who sparked a health crusade with a simple message.
We will shift the public conversation about health in this country. We will be an example for all Americans.
Will their movement have you lacing up your sneakers?
Efforts to protect college students from predatory for-profit universities have been dealt a blow under the Trump administration, according to the New York Times. Department of Education Secretary Betsy DeVos gutted a team at the Education Department responsible for investigating for-profit colleges. One target was DeVry University, which has 55 campuses across the country. Back in 2016, DeVry agreed to pay $100 million to settle a lawsuit that claimed that the university misled prospective students about job placement rates. Now, the investigation into DeVry has been halted. In August, Secretary DeVos tapped a former dean at DeVry to oversee the investigation team. That team was created in 2016 after a scandal at Corinthian Colleges, which ran more than 100 for-profit schools in 25 states and collected more than $1.7 billion in federal student aid. Corinthian Colleges suddenly closed in April of 2015, leaving 16,000 students without degrees, but thousands of dollars in student loans. Under President Obama, more than 32,000 students had their loans forgiven. In December, Secretary DeVos changed the student debt forgiveness policy, making it a case-by-case basis. Currently, college students carry nearly $1.5 trillion in loans, most of which is held by the federal government. Congressman John Garamendi is a Democrat from California's 3rd District. It's so nice to have you with us. And those are such depressing numbers across the board. Let's start talking about the investigation unit that has been decimated now by Secretary DeVos. And what's your take on all of that?
I think it's scandalous, because if you're not investigating scandals, they're going to continue. And thousands upon thousands of young men and women, and some older, that are going back to technical training schools are going to get ripped off.
So then what are the options? What can Congress do? Is the answer nothing?
This Congress, the answer, it won't do anything. They're in league with this entire privatization notion. And we don't expect to see much coming out of Congress.
So then what, does it now turn to states or to step in and create something that can actually assess and look into fraud and help students who feel like they've been victims of fraud?
Well, that's where we're going to be for the next couple of years, until this administration ends and maybe until Congress changes. But the reality is the states do have power. They should have the power.
$1.5 trillion is the total amount of student debt. 70% of students in this country owe an average of $38,000 apiece. This then goes on to mean that if you have that kind of debt, you're not buying a house, you're probably delaying marriage, et cetera, et cetera. Betsy DeVos has said, listen, we can't just discharge that debt because we need to protect taxpayers. Does she have a point there?
No, she does not.
Don't taxpayers pick up the bill?
The taxpayers are already picking up the bill in two different ways. One you just described. It is the delay of entering the economy, because you got to pay off the student bill. You can go bankrupt and pay off and have your credit cards obligations discharged. But under the current law, you cannot go bankrupt and have your student loans discharged. They ought to be able to do so. Yes, you do owe money to the federal government. The federal government has decided that it is part of this rip-off program.
So to what degree could free college be a solution to this?
Well, you take a look at history. You go back to California in the 50s and 60s. It was essentially higher education and community colleges were free. I was in the schools at the time. It was less than $100 a year. It was the notion that education was a public good and that the society should provide the funding for the educational system. That's long gone now. Can we go back to that? Of course we could. How does it cost? I don't know, $50, $60, $70 billion a year. Is it worth doing? Well, it's a good argument. And you need to look at it for the economic growth of the nation. You need to look at it for a well-educated workforce in the future. And is it worth $50 to $70 billion a year to make that happen so that everybody can go to a community college or a four-year college without tuition? I'll tell you where I am. Spend your money on educating your society. And here's where this administration is failing the public, failing this nation, and failing the future economy by not clamping down on what is a known problem all across this nation. That is the private, for-profit universities and schools ripping off students, not providing the quality education, and leaving those students with a huge, impossible debt.
Congressman John Garamendi, nice to have you. Thanks for talking with us.
My pleasure. Thank you.
When we return, can what these women do for 30 minutes a day improve their health and neighborhood?
This has never been a fitness group. This has always been a group about radical healing.
How a nationwide health crisis sparked a movement. And are Democrats shifting farther left? What candidates on the ballot this week could learn from past primaries.
There could be some big wins for progressives. When it comes to heart disease, Americans are facing a health crisis, and it's even worse for Black women. According to the Centers for Disease Control, more than 80% of African-American women are overweight. Nearly 40% have high blood pressure, and close to 40% have high cholesterol, all of which increase the risk for heart disease and stroke. Now, Girl Trek, a nonprofit founded in 2012, is trying to change those statistics one step at a time. Girl Trek co-founders Morgan Dixon and Vanessa Garrison have been featured as health heroes by Essence magazine and called icons and trailblazers by Outside magazine. Vanessa and Morgan, so nice to have you guys with me. So walk me back to the very beginning. Why start Girl Trek?
Soledad, I think we were looking for a solution for ourselves. We were friends in college, and we, you know, like all kind of girlfriends do, we got on the phone, we like lamented about like the state of affairs and like what our mama said yesterday and like all these sorts of things. And we kept coming back to this, this kind of question around our health, working too hard, not feeling well, being under kind of low energy.
So was it sort of, I'm looking for an exercise solution?
No, it was looking for a way to save our own lives.
I mean, there's startling statistics that we aren't talking about enough in this country. 80% of Black women are over a healthy body weight. 53% of Black women are obese. 137 Black women are dying every single day from heart disease. And so what we're saying is that actually means you're not there. You're not there for your family, for your community, et cetera. And that is a crisis. And it's something that when we talk to Black women about, they understand. It's why Girl Trek has been far more successful than all of the government interventions that are out there, the private weight loss companies, because we are creating a narrative for Black women that really addresses, you know, the motivation for why they would want to walk.
How did you get to the solution of walking? Because I would think yoga, CrossFit, biking, whatever could have all been up there.
Right. This has never been a fitness group. This has always been a group about radical healing. So we thought, what if we rallied 1 million of their mothers to walk with us? Yeah. What would that do in their households? What would that do in our society? So we started playing with this idea, and then we started telling other people, and people didn't believe we could do it.
And the great thing about the walking was that it was affordable, it was accessible, it met women at their point of need. Women could do it in their own neighborhoods, they could do it locally, they were able to reclaim their neighborhoods in the process and build community around them so that they can walk and talk and solve problems together.
When did Girl Trek become about history. At the beginning, I thought, oh, so this is 30 minutes cardio health. And then I started reading about your connection to really traveling, using that 30 minutes to travel through history.
So you may know that we walked 100 miles on the Underground Railroad just recently. There were 10 of us. We were walking through hail and sleet. We were walking past old plantations, through forests, through small towns. It was surreal. And we are inspired by women like Harriet Tubman. We are inspired by women like Fannie Lou Hamer. We are inspired by the women in the Montgomery bus boycotts who walked to change America. That's what we're trying to do. When a 1 million Black women walk, we will shift the public conversation about health in this country. We will be an example for all Americans in this country.
It makes me want to go get my sneakers and get outside if it weren't raining right this moment.
No.
Rain or shine, sleet or snow, we are out there. And it's actually a powerful testimony to the effectiveness of Girl Trek is that women are pushing past all sorts of perceptions and barriers around rain jacket, no rain jacket, let your hair soak up the moisture, all of that goodness, because what matters is that you are reclaiming that time and you are doing the work.
Well, big congratulations, Vanessa Garrison and Morgan Dixon. Thanks for joining me.
Thank you so much.
Coming up, can President Trump help Republican candidates wipe out a possible blue wave in the midterms? Plus, one man's trash is another man's treasure. Seriously.
It's a sustainable home made out of recycled materials like old tires and glass bottles and dirt.
Could recycled junk help Puerto Rico withstand the upcoming hurricane season?
And now to our weekly segment we like to call We're Paying Attention Even If You're Too Busy. If recent primaries are any indication of where Democrats stand, then there could be some big wins for progressives and women. This past Tuesday in the battleground state of Pennsylvania, centrists like John Morganelli and Rachel Reddick lost to more progressive candidates. It was a similar story in Nebraska where Kara Eastman, a first-time candidate and social worker, defeated an establishment candidate and centrist, Brad Ashford. That prompted the Progressive Change Campaign Committee to tweet, "The way for Democrats to win in 2018 is to push for a progressive agenda." Eastman will now face the Republican incumbent come November. Another takeaway from Tuesday, women candidates had a good night. A record number ran for House seats in Pennsylvania, and at least 8 out of 20 won. For Republicans, 2 Senate candidates backed by President Trump both won, including Lou Barletta in Pennsylvania and Deb Fischer in Nebraska. Barletta is a longtime Trump supporter who takes a hard line on immigration. The president is expected to campaign for him as he tries to unseat 2-term Democratic Senator Bob Casey come November. Republicans currently hold a narrow majority in the U.S. Senate, 51 to 49. Democrats would need to flip Republican seats to win control of the House in November.
When we return, otherworldly architecture.
And these small homes that look like igloos are able to withstand natural disasters like hurricanes and earthquakes.
How one couple is rebuilding Puerto Rico one Earthship at a time.
Hurricane season is just 2 weeks away, which means people in Puerto Rico will still be recovering from the devastating effects of last year's deadly Hurricane Maria when the new season starts on June 1st. 20,000 people there are still without power, many living in what's called informal housing, which is basically tarp-covered homes in makeshift shanty towns. If another major hurricane hits Puerto Rico, it could likely destroy the island. Lauralina Melendez and Mario Atunez lost their home when Hurricane Maria hit. Now they're building the island's first Earthship. It's a sustainable home made out of recycled materials like old tires and glass bottles and dirt. And these small homes that look like igloos are able to withstand natural disasters like hurricanes and earthquakes. Earthships were developed by a nonprofit group in New Mexico. They trained the couple on how to build the structures. Currently, there are about 70 volunteers who are helping with construction. And it's more than just one Earthship. They're currently working on 5 domes and are looking for additional land to build a community of Earthships in the next 2 years. I'm Soledad O'Brien, and we will see you back here next week for Matter of Fact.